this was a pretty startling admission on CNN last night. Caitlin Collins had Senator Markwayne Mullen on, the guy that tried to have a fist fight with Sean O'Brien in the Senate, and Bernie had to break it up.
Kind of won O'Brien's respect a little bit.
Right.
I won't get into that right now.
I mean, well, and now Sean O'Brien's all like loving the Republicans, so I guess that's water under the bridge. But he's here on CNN, and Caitlin Collins asked him about Donald Trump's tariffs. And no problem. He makes an admission here that I just don't think any other Republicans have said so far, but it's absolutely the case. So he lets slip what the real function of Trump's insane tariff war is.
It's promises made and promises kept by the president.
Well, but the businesses seem confused. I mean, Wall Street, we're watching. I mean, you're seeing the numbers.
Sure.
What's a business leader left to think, or an investor?
It's tough right now, and I understand that. I'm a business owner. We all make decisions based on two things: the way we're raised and our life experience. Before politics, all I ever did was business. You need certainty, which is why we need, tax policy that's permanent, not that's able to fade in and out. I'm not trying to get off on that subject, but I'm just saying that we need certainty in the business world. Tariffs is a tax, and it will be passed on consumers, but it also allows us to have open markets. So if you want to have open markets and access to other markets, so let's go past Canada and let's go past Mexico and start talking about the rest of the countries we allow to come in here, that the president says we want to have reciprocal taxes on you. If you're going to, or tariffs on you, if you're going to charge us 36%, we're going to charge you 36%. If you want to charge us zero, we'll charge you zero. Every one of these countries want access to the strongest and greatest economy in the world. That's the United States. We don't necessarily have to have their market, but if they're going to have access to us, we want access to their market.
What you just said is important, that a tariff is a tax and it is passed on to consumers.
Of course it is. Everybody knows that.
That is something the White House does not acknowledge.
No, that is something that the president, who is a business person, understands that completely. No one understands the economy better than this president. There hasn't been a president that understands this economy better than this president.
Can you pause it? I'm sorry, just for a quick second, and go back to when she says, you just revealed that, because the White House is not revealing it. And you see he gets nervous and just starts to compliment Donald Trump over the top, right? He admitted what he's not supposed to admit, that the tariffs are a compounding regressive tax on the American people instead of raising taxes on the wealthy to justify further tax cuts on the wealthy.
And greatest economy in the world, that's the United States. We don't necessarily have to have their market, but if they're going to have access to us, we want access to their market.
What you just said is important, that a tariff is a tax and it is passed on to consumers.
Of course it is. Everybody knows that.
That is something the White House does not acknowledge.
No, that is something that the president, who is a business person, understands that completely. No one understands the economy better than this president. There hasn't been a president that understands this economy better than this president.
And I think you'd agree that in part of why he won re-election was because of his promises on the economy. There's a new CNN poll today out that says Americans are not that impressed with how he's handled it so far. It's 56% majority of the public disapproves. That's actually lower. It's a higher disapproval than it ever was during his first term in office.
It's still higher than it ever was with Biden, though.
Well, but are we judging him just on Biden's numbers?
No, I'm just saying that if you're going to use numbers, you're using his high number in his first 4 years where we had inflation at 1.4%.
It's worse than it ever was during his first term in terms of how they're viewing it. But
sure, but he's got to recover from 4 years of Biden. Keep in mind, we had we were in a recession over Biden, but no one talked about it. Sorry, I'm sorry to say that.
They were asked how Trump is handling the economy over Biden. I mean, they were asked about the tariffs specifically, and they said they disapprove of that even by a wider margin, 61 to 39%.
President Trump will get this economy where it needs to go. He said that he was going to do what he's doing with the tariffs moving on. He said he's going to keep people from taking advantage of us. These countries have been taking advantage of us.
Okay. This is what happens when you elect a guy that basically operates as a glorified mafia boss to be the president of this country, because he has no fundamental understanding of how our trade relationships work with our partners in North America or in Europe, and how it is mutually beneficial in this more broad capitalist sense, right? If we want to talk about cutting into globalization and onshoring a lot of our manufacturing, I'm on board with that. But you know what sort of addressed that? Through a very kind of xenophobic lens, but still, the CHIPS Act. The CHIPS Act was about domestically manufacturing a lot of what we import from China and abroad so that we have a more resilient economy. And Donald Trump the other day says he wants to take a hammer to the CHIPS Act.
The point of tariffs, and why we used them a lot when we were a developing economy hundreds of years ago, and why developing economies use them now, is to protect local industry so you can build it up there. I mean, I think Samsung in South Korea. I mean, South Korea is a big example. I'm not sure particularly if Samsung is, but these companies are basically state protected.
Yeah.
And there is a use. And again, like, look at China. Like, it's very clear why Americans, and why it's sort of bipartisan, that we wanted to help the chip industry here in America, because a lot of them are being made in Taiwan. And look at a map, for instance, if
Right.
war broke out. So, but this is, tariffs are not done to raise money from other countries.
Well, when they are done in that way, and when it's being applied in this way, it really, all it does is put that on the back of the American public.
Right. They have to be targeted toward a certain industry that
Exactly.
you want to develop.
If you want to incentivize onshore manufacturing of X product, you slap a tariff on the import of that particular product so that the price is higher, and so the US-based company can compete. But broad tariffs, 25%, 50%, now he's saying 200% for European booze, that is just going to function as a regressive tax. The sales tax, as I've said a few times on the show, is already a regressive tax because it's a flat tax on those goods. And then if you are somebody who's a working family or a middle income family, the proportion of your disposable income that is spent with that sales tax percentage is higher than somebody who is wealthier. And so when you increase the price of goods to raise revenue as opposed to taxing the rich instead, that is a compounding regressive tax. That's how tariffs are going to function. What they don't want to address is that since the Reagan era, when he slashed the top marginal tax rate for people from like 70% to around 50%, and then they kept cutting and cutting and cutting since that period, is that the reason that, say, our budget isn't in order or we have some of these deficits is because we completely cut off the most effective fundraising mechanism for the federal government, which is taxes and taxing the rich. So they don't want to do that. And a lot of Democrats, frankly, don't want to sign off on a bill that raises taxes on people who are also their donors.
Yeah, they're bought by the same people.
So
it's the representatives of rich people saying, we don't know where money is.
Right. So Trump is saying, we can go around that, and I can do this unilaterally and make it so that everyday people bear this burden. And we're going to be talking about, the historical parallels with William McKinley with our next guest in just a second. But, I do think that is a startling admission there, where
there'll be a little disturbance. But we're okay with that. It won't be much.
Yeah, I'm sure you are okay with that. To make tariffs a major source of federal revenue is to immiserate the average family, period. And I do think at the end of the day, this is their effort to, it's a very far right libertarian vision of we've already cut the income tax and slashed it since under Reagan in the ways that I just described. Yeah. How about we get rid of income tax altogether? Like in Florida.
Because what would actually really help manufacturing is massive infrastructure spending.
It would.
Things like that. We could do all this tariff stuff or whatever, but you could just make it so our trains weren't derailing and spilling stuff all over the place. Maybe make that more efficient, but whatever. What do I know?
Hey folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.